The case of Brown versus Board of Education, we chose because we wanted to look at the historical perspective. And it came out in 1954 from Topeka, Kansas, in the heartland of the US. It challenged the premise of a prior Supreme Court case from Plessy versus Ferguson that was decided in 1896 that had established separate but equal as the law of the land. And as the children in Marcy's piece said so well, we're separate. We live separately, and therefore we go to school separate. But separate but equal. Can we let that sink in for a moment? The Declaration of Independence states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." It goes on to list all of the offenses of the King of Great Britain that required the United States to separate from England's rule. Among those are he, the king, has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. However, as we established our own Constitution to ensure freedom of our citizens, there was a separation of consideration of who was a citizen from the beginning. Separate was never equal. Slavery was legal. Women were citizens but could not vote. And natives, AKA the Indians, that predated European occupation here were displaced and managed on reservations. Our democracy has been challenged from the start, but we are still working to make this a more perfect union. So from 1896 to 1954, we protected separate while making no attempt to make it equal. As a matter of fact, the KKK and Jim Crow laws dominated the country, even as free former slaves and their descendants were subject to disparate treatment with minimal relief. During this 58-year period and beyond, Black people, especially in the South, saw the promise of equality under the law granted by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to the Constitution receding quickly, and a return to disenfranchisement and other disadvantages as white privilege asserted itself throughout the US. As historian C. Van Woodard pointed out in the 1964 article about Plessy versus Ferguson, white and Black Southerners mixed relatively freely until the 1880s, when state legislators passed the first laws requiring railroads to provide separate cars for Negro or colored passengers. The cases of Plessy versus Ferguson and Brown versus Board of Education are linked, as the former case set a precedent that the latter case sought to correct. Please note that the laws governing the decisions did not change, but the interpretation did. On May 18, 1896, the Supreme Court delivered its verdict in Plessy versus Ferguson, in declaring separate but equal facilities constitutional on interstate railroads. The court ruled that the protections of the 14th Amendment applied only to political and civil rights, like voting and jury service, not social rights, like sitting in a rail car of your choice. Only one justice out of the 9, John Marshall Harlan, disagreed, and writing in his dissent that segregation ran counter to the constitutional principle of equality under the law. He said, "The arbitrary separation of citizens on the basis of race while they are on public highway is a badge of servitude, wholly inconsistent with the civil freedom and the equality before the law established by the Constitution. He concluded, it cannot be justified upon any legal grounds. However, this landmark case decided, um, however, when Brown versus Board of Education was decided in 1954, at the dawn of the Civil Rights Movement, it would essentially concur with Harlan's opinion in Plessy versus Ferguson, that dissenting opinion. He was indeed a minority opinion in our government and in our society at the time. The marginalized, however, continue to work within the system to bring more equity to our fragile democracy. Let's keep in mind that only men had the right to vote until the 19th Amendment to the Constitution passed in 1920, just 100 years ago. There's still people living today. The Topeka case and 4 other cases related to school segregation first came before the Supreme Court in 1952, where the court combined them into one single case under the name of Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka. The case had gone before the U.S. District Court in Kansas, which agreed that public school segregation had a detrimental effect upon the colored children and contributed to a sense of inferiority. But still, they upheld separate but equal doctrine. Linda Brown Thompson was the plaintiff in that case, and she explained in a speech that she gave at the University of Michigan in 2004 that the local lawsuit had not focused on the quality of the education, noting the strength and the commitment of Black teachers, but the complaint dealt with the lack of access to public schools closest to their home. Linda, instead of going to the school just 2 blocks from where she lived, was forced to catch a bus to an all-Black facility several miles from where they lived. Even as the case moved forward, the Black community was split on its merits. Some felt that the action was well overdue, while others expressed concern about upsetting the balance of things, which caused fear of job loss and even threats of violence. Those fears were fueled by actions even taken by the Topeka School Board. And they wrote to Black teachers stating, quote, due to present uncertainty about enrollment next year in schools for Negro children, it is not possible to offer you employment for next year. If the court should rule that segregation in elementary grades is unconstitutional, our board will proceed on the assumption that the majority of people in Topeka will not want to employ Negro teachers next year for the white children. It is necessary for me to notify you that your services will not be needed for the next year. A threat that they kept in, that they made and kept. Thurgood Marshall, the head of the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, served as chief attorney for the plaintiffs. Reverend Oliver Brown, Linda's father, testified that it was not equitable for his daughter, that his daughter could not attend the neighborhood school due to the color of her skin. Marshall argued that this was a violation of the 14th Amendment and was ultimately successful in higher court. Writing the majority opinion in the 1954 case, Chief Justice Earl Warren wrote, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place in public education, calling segregated schools inherently unequal and declaring that the plaintiffs in the Brown case were being deprived of equal protection of the laws guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. In its verdict, the Supreme Court did not specify how exactly schools should be integrated, but asked for further arguments about it. So in May of 1955, the court issued a second opinion in the case known as Brown versus Board of Education 2, which remanded future desegregations to lower federal courts and directed district courts and school boards to proceed with desegregation with all deliberate speed. Though well-intentioned, The court's actions effectively opened the door to local, judicial, and political evasion of desegregation. While Kansas and some other states acted in accordance with the verdict, many school and local officials in the South defied it. The victory helped some and hurt others. As stated earlier, many Black teachers lost employment because they were deemed unqualified to teach white children. While desegregation in Topeka went fairly smoothly, in other states, some school boards went as far as closing schools to prevent integration. I lived in St. Louis, where I grew up, and started school in September of 1960. Little had been done toward integration in our city until 1964, when complete classrooms, including our teacher, were bused from an overcrowded school in the inner city to a less populated white school. Our class occupied space in the school, but the only interaction with white students was a shared 15-minute recess. Even lunch was a separate time. My children experienced a different desegregation and were bused from the city to the county in St. Louis. A different experience, but they were integrated into the classroom, but many times isolated when it came to other parts of the school. There has seldom been a time of action of freedom that did not come with a cost. Who are the winners and losers in our society? Who are the winners and losers in history today? How shall the story be told going forward? May truth be our guide with acceptance and grace so that we can move forward together. May it be so. And now, Barbara, can you share?
Thank you, Roz, for sharing your thoughts and personal experience about Brown versus the Board of Education. And while we laud the decision, it can be considered a failure for Black students and Black teachers, and for white students as well. As Roz said, part of the problem is that the landmark decision didn't provide any leadership about how to end racial segregation in schools. It simply ordered desegregation to happen with all deliberate speed. We see the pictures of the day when a Black child, surrounded by jeering white adults, is escorted into an elementary school and think, well, that was a good thing, and then move on, believing progress has been made. However, it seems a more effective understanding is that progress is possible, and yet the work is incomplete. So, friends, the times are changing, and folks in the majority culture are on task to make room. It may feel scary, it may feel unfair, and the tendency may be to feel and act defensively. As seemingly new historical information arises, as it did last year in the aftermath of the George Floyd tragedy and the resulting protests, when many people found out for the first time about the Tulsa Race Massacre. It may feel as though we're in a time of revisionist history, when the history many of us were taught doesn't match up with the historical information that arises. So how can we resist the urge to deny it and be defensive? How can we wake up every day and keep on loving this experiment in governance that is so imperfect and, as we're witnessing, so fragile? Perhaps our Unitarian Universalist faith can help us on this continued journey toward justice, equality, and equity. In the past year, a list has shown up multiple times on my social feeds, maybe yours as well. It states, "It's no accident that you learned about Helen Keller instead of W.E.B. Du Bois. You learned about the Watts and LA riots, but not Tulsa or Wilmington. You learned that George Washington's dentures were made from wood rather than the teeth from slaves. You learned about black ghettos, but not about Black Wall Street. You learned about the New Deal, but not about redlining. You learned about Tommy Smith's fist in the air at the 1968 Olympics, but not that he was sent home the next day and stripped of his medals. You learned about black crime, but white criminals were never lumped together and discussed in terms of their race. You learned about states' rights as the cause of the Civil War, but not that slavery was mentioned 80 times in the Articles of Secession. Privilege is having history rewritten so that you don't have to acknowledge uncomfortable facts. Racism is perpetuated by people who refuse to learn or acknowledge this reality. Sadly, as our friend Beverly McCormick observes, when Black people make progress, there are forces looking to strip it away. It seems to me Brown v. Board is a powerful example. The failure to provide an implementation strategy caused the dissemination of Black teachers and superintendents' jobs, and really they have never recovered. What we have lost in the years since Brown v. Board is diverse models of intellectual and cultural authority. We have missed a most basic opportunity to sincerely undo our insidious historical past. Now, understand this is not to suggest that teachers do this systematically and purposefully. It's not our intent to propose an indictment against our hardworking teachers who dedicate their careers to educating our youths. We're more concerned with the implications of policy that dictate an end without providing steps for success, or for policy that is clearly exclusionary, such as the recent Viewpoint Diversity Bill signed just this summer by the Florida governor after banning public schools from teaching critical race theory. While the Florida law does not address penalties for schools where the survey finds low levels of intellectual freedom and viewpoint diversity, Governor DeSantis has hinted at the potential for budget cuts at universities that do not pass the muster. He's doing this because he says he's concerned about the free flow of ideas. Now here's an interesting story. West Point, Mississippi High School named 2 students of color valedictorian and salutatorian. But almost immediately, white parents challenged the decision and raised questions about who should be honored. To solve the issue, the school decided to name 2 valedictorians and 2 salutatorians. As a result, the students of color were joined by 2 white students. Now you know where this happened, but when do you think it happened? Some of you may already know that it happened this past May. A split along racial lines has occurred and a student counselor blamed. How did it happen? It was a result of how the grades were calculated. The students of color achieved their top honor status by the calculation of quality point average, or QPA, a system of calculating grades that gives extra weight to advanced placement and dual credit courses. But it turned out the white students were the top finishers based on an unweighted grade point average. Of course, there are additional details and factors, including family influence, which is to be expected because race is always interconnected with many other aspects of hierarchies of power. While every student had class rank status opportunity, white parents insisted on equity, and the compromise was that the class rank was shared. We can't prove that it would have been different had the white students achieved the quality ranking. Would the black students have been recognized? Would the issue have even come up? White people most usually figure out a way to stay on top, even if they have to challenge the rules. Standards apply differently to people of color. So I said previously that we'll be confronted with information about our past that may feel like revisionist history. The way we respond to this new information is critical. We have a choice to remain open-minded and interested instead of defensive and closed. Being open to understanding our history and learning about our past and not taking it personally is a way of healing that past and forging a new future. Democracy is fragile and it is participatory. We can't afford to rest on seemingly good and benevolent decisions because there will always be an effort to chip away at that success. In the past, it has been my tendency to be judgmental and disappointed in our United States, but I've come to realize that response is not helpful, nor will it ever result in moving the moral arc of the universe toward justice. Instead, it's now my practice to do my own research and come to my own conclusions. And also follow some of our own VUU members who are actively involved in education issues here in the state of Arizona and the country at large. The principles of Unitarian Universalism also help me, and I'm not limiting their wisdom to only the first one, because it seems to me each principle is about bringing humankind toward cooperation and justice with everyone and everything. As a reminder, they are: 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person; 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations; 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth; 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning; 5, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process; 6, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all; 7, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. Blessed be. And now for our closing hymn video. It's called Wanting Memories, written by Isaiah Barnwell and performed by First Unitarian Brooklyn Quartet. Thank you.
I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. You used to rock me in the cradle of your arms. You said you'd hold me till the pains of life were gone. You said you'd comfort me in times like these, and now I need you, and now I need you, and you are gone. So I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Since you've gone and left me, there's been so little beauty, but I know try to hear your voice above the storms of life. Then I remember that I was told. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I think all the things that made me feel so wonderful when I was young. I think all the things that made me laugh, made me dance, made me sing. I think all the things that made me grow into a being full of pride. I think on these things, for they are true. And I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I thought that you were gone, but now I know you're with me. You are the voice that whispers all I need to hear. I know a please, a thank you, and a smile will take me far. I know that I am you and you are me and we are one. I know that who I am is numbered in each grain of sand. I know that I've been blessed again and over again. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes.
For our closing words, I'm going to close where I began and say, it takes courage not to be discouraged. It takes courage to wake up every day and keep loving this unequal, unjust world. War makes good people murderers and killers. It is in the best interest of some folks in power to have us be at war with each other, to keep on hating and discriminating against each other. But that is not the answer. The answer is understanding how everything is one. Go in peace, my dear friends. Curiosity and courage. And now, Roz, will you lead us in extinguishing our chalice?
Of course. And now, as I blow out the chalice and we end this service, please join me in saying the extinguishing words. Though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again.
The rooms are open now. There's only 10 people left in here. Oh.
I think everybody's in a room except for.
Yeah, except people who, so you can take down the slide now and
Yeah.
everybody in here should be able to unmute themselves.
What is that?
Hi, Angela. Hi, Ella.
Hi.
There's Jim.
Hi,
Yeah.
Jim.
Hello.
Ella, I saw you playing your keyboard this morning.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Hi, little pea pod.
Hi, my little cookie.
You're gonna eat your taco.
No worries.
Nancy, you should be able to unmute yourself.
I'm gonna leave. Have a nice chat.
There we go.
Hi.
So is Fred coming back in August or what? Sorry, I think I'm confused.
Yeah, I think he's on vacation for a couple of weeks or something.
I think August 17th, he said he'd be back. But I think the Sundays, I don't know. He comes back the 17th of August. I don't know. I don't think that's a Sunday.
When he comes back into town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when vacation's over.
Okay. I don't recognize LINSW.
No, I don't know that person either. And they're muted.
And you can unmute, you should be able to unmute yourself if you're there.
Welcome.
Yeah. How's my little pea pod?
I got a corn dog.
You got a corn dog.
Got a corn dog, yummy.
You don't like the breading. You take off the breading and then just eat the hot dog.
I used to do that too when I was her age.
My picture keeps going off.
Yeah, that's
I'm
I'm
not doing anything to it. I'm not even touching anything.
well,
And he starts with and
I've got a gremlin living in my machine.
yeah.
I clicked ask to start video. Does that pop up a thing on your screen?
No.
You
Do it again. See if it happens.
Okay. Where is it? Oh, I have a thing that says stop video. Can I?
I
Let
just
me
have
see.
an arrow.
Let me see if I. Okay, so if I hit that like that, then your video stopped.
Yeah.
If I hit this, it'll say ask to start video.
Oh yeah, it says start my video. So I need to click that?
Yeah.
I guess. Well, let's see what happens. Oh, whoops.
now you're back.
There it did. Now let's see if it clicks off
for
again.
a new day.
Huh?
Yeah,
Maybe
look.
the magic worked.
Sometimes
Yeah.
the magic works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, it's so
Oh, there we go. It's
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
again.
here.
Oh, I think it just wants to play hide and seek.
It does. I'm not touching anything.
I want to go.
When we lived in
Crazy.
Portland, well, I grew up there, so it was been in the 60s. There was a photography place. Photographers could bring their film, and they had dark rooms there and all this kind of stuff that you could do on your own. But
Uh-huh.
if you didn't have a space or anything for a dark room. And the name of it was Sometimes the Magic Works.
Yeah, sometimes it
There you
has.
go.
Yeah, darkroom photography is a little bit. There's a little voodoo there.
There's a lot of voodoo there. I think.
Some alchemy and chemistry and voodoo.
Crossed fingers.
When I was a professional horse show photography, I did all my own developing and processing.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Did you have it?
Here.
Did you have it at your house, or did you go to a place?
I had a little office that I had a darkroom built.
Wow. Ooh, that's
the-
cool.
Where I didn't process my own film, I would take it in to be done at a, camera film processing place, a camera store.
Yeah.
But then I did all my own print enlargements and prints
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah. That is so time consuming.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know if that company is still in business. It probably isn't.
I think
Oh.
it is actually that it wasn't just a film processing place, it was a camera store. It was on 7th Street in Camelback.
Well, this is in Portland.
I think Nancy was talking about the one called Sometimes the Magic Works.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what
okay.
I was talking about.
Even if the magic works, it didn't work forever.
No, it didn't work forever, and it didn't always work.
Yeah.
Hey, my thing is still popping off. See?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Please. Right there on the book. See what I
Well,
mean?
I am going to go, guys, and I will see you all next week. And I'm going to cut out before the crazy crowd gets here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think there are any here. I don't know. Maybe there are. Okay, bye.
Yeah, they'll be. I have a good week, Nancy.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Another one.
Okay, so when I was doing those transitions from, for example, one video to another, I was instead of stopping the share and then making, and then sharing the next one, there's an option when you've got something shared to say new share.
Oh.
Right. But the thing is, I think what it does is it pauses the share.
Yeah, because I noticed that a couple of the videos, when they first came up, they would start for a second and then pause and then start up again.
Well, I did one where I actually restarted it because I realized what it does is if say you're sharing, you got video 1 and you want to then transition smoothly to video 2. If you say new share and then you select the video 2 to share, it does it, but it does a thing called pausing the share.
Oh, gotcha.
And one time I realized the share was paused and I didn't know what that really meant, but I suspected. So I hit unpause and restarted the thing and it started over. The second time that happened, I just let it go because it was the breathing one. I think it was, or it was one of them. I can't remember, but that's that feature. In order to make it truly smooth, I'm going to have to practice with that a little bit.
Yeah. I think all the transitions went really well.
Yeah. Well, except for that one thing, but if I hadn't done it that way, then there would be dead air time while I'm looking for the thing to click on anyway.
Right.
Yeah, I thought there was a lag time.
I thought there was a lag time too.
Yeah, I thought there was,
Just a little, but he was doing both the slide sharing and the video sharing.
Yeah. I was doing my job and Blake's job today, so it was a little bit less smooth.
I forgot to stop the recording.
Oh yeah, we're recording. Oh no.